Hello everyone, Mike Uyak here for Adventures in Art. We're here in the studio. Look, we need to talk. And I promise you, this is going to be one of those rare moments in life where a conversation that begins with the sentence, "we need to talk," is actually a good thing. This is for your own good. So, over the years, when people hear that I occasionally call myself a photographer, they have a lot of questions for me. They inundate me with questions. It's sort of like when a doctor goes to a dinner party and everyone learns that he's a doctor, and so complete strangers walk up and say, "Oh, I've got this rash." And the poor doctor is like, "Well, first, I'm a pediatrician, and secondly, ew." In the same way, people hear I'm a photographer, therefore I am an expert in photography. And all aspects of photography. So they say, what's the best camera for me? What's the best lens? Should I buy a consumer grade point and shoot or a digital SLR? What's the best flash? What's the best tripod? And the answer is almost invariably the same. It depends. I think I can narrow it down to basically three questions. What kind of photography are you planning on doing? How often do you actually plan on doing that kind of photography? In other words, is it actually going to be worth your money to actually buy or upgrade a camera if you're only going to use it once a year? And three, and perhaps most importantly, what kind of money do you have to throw around? And ultimately, that is probably the most important question to ask for 99% of us. If you're made of money, if money is no object for you, go crazy. Buy all the toys you want. But I would say, unless you're collecting cameras or something, you should save your money and just buy the camera that you need. So, how do you make that decision? Well, again, it's asking the kind of questions about the kind of photography that you want to do, and how serious you are about it. That will determine your choices. So let's go over the choices really quick, or as quickly as I'm able. I tend to babble. You may have noticed, but let's go over some of your choices and see what feels right to you for your kind of photography. Now, if you're super serious about photography, if you intend maybe to even go professional, or if you know you're going to be shooting a lot under a lot of different conditions, and so you need a really flexible platform, then digital SLR or SLR cameras, you don't have to go digital, but it's getting harder and harder to actually shoot with film these days, so I primarily talk about digital. You're probably going to want an SLR camera. Now, SLR stands for single lens reflex, and basically the way that a SLR camera works, regardless of whether it's film or digital, is that light comes in through the lens, like every camera, but it goes, once it enters into the camera body, it reflects off of a mirror. I don't know if you can see it here, but there's a mirror right there that's mounted at a 45-degree angle. And that causes the light, obviously, to bounce up off another mirror, actually, and into the viewfinder of the camera, so that you can actually see what you're looking at. When you press the shutter button, that mirror flips up out of the way, and the light now shines onto the sensor, which is in the back of the camera, and that's what actually digitizes the image and saves it. Now, SLR cameras are the semi-professional and professional level of cameras. They're sort of the standard for a professional photographer. The pros are versatility. The biggest pro really is versatility. They're big, powerful cameras They have all the bells and whistles. All of the functions are accessible at, a thumb's distance away. And most of the common functions that you're probably going to be accessing while shooting are only a couple of button presses away. The sensor is larger. This is a Canon EOS 5D. It's a Mark II. It's probably about 7 years old. So they've made newer. There are newer models of this. Nikon also makes comparable models. I'm not going to get into the Canon versus Nikon conversation today, or ever. They're both really good. They tend to leapfrog each other every couple of years as far as all the bells and whistles and the size of the sensor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're both equally good, so we're not going to have that conversation. They feature interchangeable lenses, so you can, the sky's the limit. There's all sorts of different sizes and styles of lens, and with accompanying price tags. The cons of the SLR camera, they're big and bulky. Because you've got these detachable lenses that are big and heavy, the cameras themselves are big and heavy, they got big heavy batteries. They're a lot to lug around. They're expensive. Because they have all the bells and whistles and all the engineering that goes into designing them so they run smoothly under all sorts of conditions. That builds a fairly hefty price tag into it. The 5D and whatever the Nikon version is will run you, just the camera body will run you about $1,500 new. $1,500 to $1,800. The 1D, the top of the line professional level Canon, and I think it's the Nikon 100. I don't quote me on that. I don't really know much about Nikon, but they both run you about $2,500 new. And then you invest in the lenses, which are even more expensive, depending on the type of lens and the quality of lens that you buy, and whether or not you buy name brand or some of the smaller brands that make lenses that fit your camera. And oh, by the way, you need to be careful about that because all the different cameras, including even the same brand, the 5D and the 50D, the lenses don't fit the same cameras, all the cameras. So you need to be very careful about that. But those can run you anywhere from $100 to $10,000 if you decide to go all whole hog and buy the ridiculous lenses that allow you to take pictures of Alpha Centauri. So price tag, big. Weight and bulk, big. And because all of the functions are here, they're not necessarily automatic. You can shoot these in automatic, but because all the functions are here, if you decide you want to do some other stuff, there's a lot to learn because all the functions are here. So they're more complicated to shoot with. You don't necessarily need a camera this big or this specialized, or in some ways generalized, if all you're doing is taking pictures of your kids' birthday parties and family holidays and vacations. In particular, you don't need to go crazy on the lenses because generally speaking, you're either going to be doing big wide landscapes, in which case a wide lens is fine, or a smaller lens, or you're going to be taking pictures of your family, which means your subject is going to be 10 to 30 feet away, pretty much all the time. So you don't need huge lenses or any sort of crazy telephoto zoom unless you plan on doing stuff that requires, more zoom power. So the next level down is the consumer grade point and shoot camera. This one's an Olympus 550. It's about 8 years old. You'll notice there's a theme here. All my cameras are old because I'm poor. I make do with the camera that I have, and that is probably the most important lesson if you take nothing else away from this discussion today. It's that you should learn to master the gear that you have rather than buying next year's model and then the year after that buying another model, because it's just a little bit better or a little bit different. You should master the camera that you have, and you'd be surprised at how far it takes you. Now, the point and shoot camera, it does not have the mirror in it. It is basically mirrorless, and we'll talk about specifically about what they term mirrorless cameras, which are a little bit different from the point and shoot, but not by much. So these tend to have a smaller sensor, so they have slightly less resolution and or more noise, and I talk about that in a different blog post, so you should look through the blog to talk about camera resolutions. But so I guess we can talk about the cons since we're already on the smaller sensor. Usually they're 3/4 or sometimes half sensor. You know, when you see a camera that says full frame, that means that the sensor itself is physically 35 millimeter. It's the same size as a cell of 35 millimeter film. So you're going to get the same image quality as you would from an old film camera of comparable quality. Now, point and shoot cameras typically are half or 3/4 size sensors, so slightly smaller, either lower resolution or lower quality. You have only one lens. It has no interchangeable lenses. But that being said, you should look at the optical zoom. Optical zoom refers to how much the lens itself can actually zoom in on your subject. And that's an important distinction to make, because there are some cameras that say they can zoom however many times, but if it doesn't say optical zoom, then what they're talking about is digital zoom. And you need to be very, very careful about that, because what digital zoom is, it takes the image that it's getting from whatever lens comes with the camera. It's taking that image and it's cropping it in and then blowing up the resulting image. So you're not actually getting a full-size image at, you know, whatever, I think this is 7 megapixels. At whatever resolution the camera's at, you're not actually getting that, you're getting something less. And so the more you zoom in digitally on it, the more pixelated and the more blurry the image is going to be. It might get to the point where it is either unrecognizable or just, you know, unsatisfactory. It's not going to be tack sharp, it's not going to be pleasing to the eye because it's going to be pixelated. So be careful about that. If you want to zoom in on things, make sure that your camera has good optical zoom. Now, typically these come with fairly wide lenses. This is a 28 millimeter lens that comes with this. So you're pretty much going to be taking landscapes and pictures of people close up, or subjects close up, which is fine, because for, again, 99% of us, that's what you're going to be shooting. It's only when you need to zoom in on something that you would actually need to make the move to a digital SLR with a telephoto zoom lens. Again, it's deciding whether or not you actually need to get that if you're going to be doing that more than, say, once a year. If you're doing lots of action shots of your kids, you know, Little League games or something, maybe you might need that. But really, are you? That's a question that only you can answer. Now, so I said that they sometimes feature only digital zoom instead of optical zoom. You need to be careful about that. Slightly, somewhat lower resolution, so there's that. Now, the pros: smaller, lightweight, more portable. This will, you can't really fit this one in a pocket, but a lot of point and shoot cameras, especially like the Sony makes them, Panasonic, Canon also makes, I don't think they make the ELPH anymore, but they're ones that are basically like a cell phone, or the size and shape of a cell phone, so you can slip them in your back pocket. Be careful though, because you can also sit on them and break them. But they are definitely more portable. This will definitely fit into, you know, a backpack or a purse or something. So they're more lightweight, they're more portable, and they're cheaper. A decent point and shoot camera will run you about $200. A really good one anywhere from $250 if you can find it, up to $400. For a consumer grade point and shoot camera, if they're asking for more than $400, you need to ask them why. Because I'm willing to bet that probably the reason that they're charging more for the camera is because they can, not because the camera itself is actually any better. So watch out for that. Now, I mentioned mirrorless cameras. They're sort of in between your consumer grade point and shoot and your SLR cameras. And basically they look kind of like point and shoot cameras. And they basically are, but they tend to be a little bit higher quality. Some of them, I think now they actually make full frame mirrorless cameras. So it has the quality of an SLR camera as far as the size of the sensor, but it doesn't have a big bulky lens to carry around. It has just the one wide angle lens on it. And because it's basically housed in the body of a point and shoot, they still have the positive small size and small weight. They tend to be a little bit more expensive than the point and shoot, a little bit less than an SLR, just because you have slightly better components on the inside. Are they worth it? Oh, and the difference is basically that they act like an SLR camera, but they don't have the mirror. Instead of the mirror that flips up out of the way, it just has the light hitting the sensor, and what is displayed on the LCD screen on the back of the camera, as well as a viewfinder. The viewfinder is actually just a digital LCD projection as well, and it's directly from the sensor. It's whatever the sensor is seeing is what you're seeing. Can't really point that at the sun much because you'll burn it out. You can burn out the sensor that way. If you're walking around with the camera turned on, it's basically constantly looking at the environment. It kills batteries a little bit faster too, so that's a downside of that. Some people like them. I've never really tried them, so I'm not really going to pass any sort of judgment on them. Now, there's one other kind of camera that we're going to discuss today. There's lots of others out there that are sort of hybrids of these or totally different. There's also digital video cameras that also have the capability of catching stills. I don't like doing that because video cameras are designed to capture video. And let's say it's capturing video 1080p, so that's HD, that's high definition video. But that's not really great for a still. When you take the still photo, all it's doing is basically taking a frame of the video and saving it as a JPEG. The problem is that it's at 1080p, which is not really great resolution for a photo. Most point and shoot cameras are going to be taking something that would be the equivalent of 1440p or perhaps even 1900p. An SLR camera actually is, it takes images that are like 3500 pixels on a side. So, you're probably not getting really great photos when taking with a digital video camera. I tend to advise, if you're capturing video with a video camera, great, don't use it for stills. Get a still camera. If you have to, get an adapter so that the video camera can fit onto the hot shoe of your still camera, so you can still take still photos while you're videotaping something. And also, most still cameras these days can also capture HD video, and sometimes, in some cases, 4K HD video. But, as I said, there's one other type of camera that I'm going to talk about, and it's this. Used to be a time where you wanted to take pictures, you had to get an actual camera and carry it around with you. Now, you already do carry your camera with you. It's decent, and I think depending on which smartphone you have, I think there's I don't remember what brand actually now, but there is one that was specifically for people who do photography with their phone that has, I think it's a 41 megapixel sensor on it. More power to you. But the point is that now everybody's got a camera with them. Almost everybody. And for your purposes, for 99% of you who are just going to be doing, again, family events, birthdays, whatever, this is probably good enough. It's a high enough resolution as long as you're in decent light. They're not really good in low light, but the point is that you always have it with you. You can have the most expensive, most the fanciest camera rig in the world. If you don't have it with you, it doesn't do you any good. This is with you all the time. So, again, the best advice I can give you is to master the gear that you have, which is this. It is not versatile, however. Flash is not great if you even have one with a flash. Not really good in low light, even with the flash. And there's almost no sort of features that you can fiddle with, really. No mode, a few modes maybe, depending on the app that you use. But generally speaking, difficult to take technical shots with the camera on a phone. So, again, going back to that decision, what kind of photography do you want to do? How often are you going to do it? If it's just selfies in the bathroom mirror, stick with a phone. If it's just family events where there's going to be plenty of light and you know your subjects are going to be right there in front of you, use your phone. If you're going to be taking vacation photos, maybe things that are a little bit further away that it would be nice to zoom in on, maybe some more difficult situations like night shooting. Let's say you're in Hawaii and you're seeing the fire dancers around the luau, that you need something with a little bit better low light capability. Get yourself a point and shoot. That has a little bit more features, a little bit more flexibility, and a little bit better sensor in it than in your phone. But generally speaking, your phone will probably do about 99% of what you intend to do. And it's only if you intend to do more technical shooting that you need to upgrade your cameras. So, hopefully, after all that, that's some useful information for you. My intention is to do a series of these videos to discuss specifically digital SLR cameras, since those are the types of cameras that have the most variability as far as the accessories. And how to go about selecting the right components for the kind of photography that you intend on doing. So we'll be talking about camera bodies, lenses, tripods, lights and flashes, camera bags in particular. Those are surprisingly important to select the right camera bag for you. They can almost literally make or break a photography trip. But in the meantime, if you have any questions about cameras, and in particular the types of cameras that are out there, the pros and cons of all the different brands and different models, it's best not to ask me because I don't know all the brands out there. I haven't tried all the cameras, but I know people who have. They're the people who work at your local camera stores, and I definitely advocate shopping local. Not only because it encourages small business rather than just feeding Acme Corporation or whatever, paying all your money to Amazon or any of the big retailers, but also because it's a physical store you can walk into. There's someone behind the counter who has actually worked with most of the cameras that they sell, so they can tell you the pros and cons. They can tell you everything about, megapixels and, f-stops and all the details of all the cameras that they have. And you can actually try them out. And most of them, I know that our local ones here in Seattle, Glazers and Kenmore cameras, they both also have rental departments. So if you're thinking about buying a camera, you can actually rent one for like $25 a day. Go out and actually go shooting with that camera. Try it out, see if you like it, see if it works for you, if the features and the functions seem intuitive, or if you've got to really think about it in order to make it do stuff. Those sorts of things. You can try it out and see if it's the right camera for you before you actually plunk down hundreds or possibly thousands of dollars on a new camera rig. Definitely shop local on that. So, until next time, thank you for watching, and please subscribe to this channel, like this video, pass it on to all your friends and family, and if you haven't already, head over to my Patreon page and have a look at my campaign there. I'll include the link down below here. And I'm always looking for new donors for future projects. So until next time, I'm Mike Uyak for Adventures in Art. Thanks for watching.